is Tesla finally driving into India? New developments a week after Prime Minister Modi's US visit, where it wasn't just Donald Trump but Elon Musk also who Prime Minister Modi met. Now, Tesla's India plans have been jittery for about a year now, but this time it seems Elon Musk may have turned the steering in favor of India, and his EV runs out of power in China and the US. So let's try and look at the journey so far. What exactly has the journey of Tesla's ride into India thus far been? Let's look at what really happened last year. Well, in 2024, India first rolled out what many refer to as the red carpet for Tesla's entry into the country. Now, after that, the government revised the EV duty for electric vehicles, the fully built electric vehicles, to 15% to aid, reportedly, Tesla as one of the lead beneficiaries. Thereon, the government policy also said that for this 15% duty, a minimum investment commitment of about $500 million must be made for EV companies to explore this lower duty. Now, government had in that policy capped imported cars coming into India to a maximum of 8,000 units per year. Now, Elon Musk was planning to visit India, but his plans got cancelled at the last minute when he cited what he referred to as heavy Tesla obligations back home. Now, what is recharging his plans at the moment? Well, Tesla just a day ago posted as many as 13 job roles in India on LinkedIn. These job roles were across Mumbai and Delhi. Now, this development, as I told you, is coming just a week after Prime Minister Modi's US visits. Now, reports are also indicating that Tesla is scouting for showroom space in Delhi's Aerocity and Mumbai's BKC. These seem to be the shortlisted locations for Tesla showroom, which means that perhaps Tesla could first be driving its fully built cars into India before making in India. But staying with its Make in India plans, reports are now also indicating that Maharashtra seems to be the front runner for a Tesla factory to come in. Now, what is possibly prompting this change of heart by Elon Musk? Well, number one, India's EV market is still nascent and the upside seems fairly high potential. India has sold just about 100,000 electric vehicle units in the year 2024. Meanwhile, the US is losing steam on its electric vehicles as Donald Trump now seems to be favoring the internal combustion engines or ICE technology as opposed to electric vehicles. At the same time, China, which is the largest EV market in the world, has sold in comparison as many as 1.1 crore EVs in 2024. Compare 1.1 crore EVs in China to just about 1 lakh EVs in India. But the race in China is largely being led by BYD, and Tesla may find it hard to compete. And finally, there are certain questions which remain unanswered, which we will try and address over the next few minutes here. Will Tesla build a cheaper car for India? There were talks that Tesla will look at a $20,000 equivalent of an India-only model. Will that plan continue? Now, will India-made Tesla cars attract Trump tariffs? That's again something that we'll want to explore, that if Tesla comes to India and makes in India and exports these cars made in India to the US, is the tariff threat going to loom large? And finally, will Musk act as a tariff negotiation to sweeten its own Tesla deal? And finally, will India once again revise its EV policy for foreign players who want to come in? Let's discuss all this and more with Dilip Chinoy, Chairman of India Battery Swapping Association. Mr. Chinoy, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this very important day. I want to first understand from you, does it seem this time around that Elon Musk is a lot clearer on his India plans than he was last year?
Good morning, Karthik. And I think, yes, he is much clearer on his India plans for two reasons. Actually, in March 2024, when this whole manufacturing program was announced, there were multiple different moving parts to this. The first one was the import duty. The second one was the investment. Third was the phased manufacturing program. And more importantly, the whole program, the whole 1 year and 3 year plan, what would constitute local content, etc. So those various aspects were not clear at that point of time. And it was not clear whether these would be actually explained and amplified and clarified before the elections were over or post the elections. And therefore, I think he took a strategic pause in looking at his India plans. And of course, as you mentioned in your introduction to this piece, there were different types of challenges that Tesla was facing both in China and in the domestic market. So I think for him now, he has more clarity in the future of Tesla and his approach to India.
And I can't help but ask you about tariffs, Mr. Chinoy. If Tesla does decide to make in India and then use the India-made cars and export them to his home market, which is the US, why would Trump do that in the first place when there is a tariff war waging in the world, prompted by none other than Donald Trump himself?
Okay, so I think it's very important to read the fine print in the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. I think while the whole assertion by public assertion by President Trump is that we will put reciprocal tariffs, right? So if you have tariff X for American goods in India, the same tariff will apply to the Indian goods exported to the U.S. But at the same time, there has been a kind of announcement of a kind of an FTA between U.S. and India. And if you see the follow-up statements made by Minister Goel, I think he has actually said that there could be separate carve-outs within the FTA with respect to the US, and therefore, for those areas which may have reduced rates of duty for the US under the FTA, they may not attract the reciprocal tariff from the US side. So, and if you look at it, technology and alternate energy especially is a great element of the trust framework between the US and India. So I think you're going to see some specific actions being taken here to promote manufacturing, EV manufacturing in India. And also, you must understand that while you have talked about the 1 lakh EVs sold, but if you look at the percentage of EVs sold as a percentage of the total vehicles sold,
Yeah,
the highest number is in the luxury category,
that's right.
and that is where Tesla actually comes in, and therefore that number itself is a very attractive number for any manufacturer around the world to look at India. And of
All
course,
right.
he's chosen a strategy to focus on 2 cities, right? Which is also a very good strategy. He can then go to the third city. It may be Ahmedabad because that's also a large market for such cars.
All right. So from the things that you just mentioned, Mr. Chinoy, there are two things, and I want to come to them one by one. Number one, on the reciprocal tariffs and whether or not they will impact India's auto exports. But now this is something that Minister Piyush Goyal mentioned 2 days back. But what is emerging today in the news is that there is going to be a reciprocal tariff of 25% on auto components and pharmaceuticals, and this is something that President Donald Trump has announced would be implemented on the 2nd of April. So on the tariff part, there continues to be this confusion that will these tariffs be restricted to target countries like Mexico, Canada and China only, or will India's auto components industry also get impacted by the 25% tariff?
No, I think there are two aspects to this. The first thing is really it is addressing the FTAs that the US had and the whole deal that they had with the countries that you mentioned. I think India is a different category, and if you look at the pharmaceutical sector, for instance, one of the discussions and outcomes during the President Trump and Prime Minister Modi discussion was that India would provide key, APIs and other key intermediates to the U.S. Pharma industry to enable them to look at an alternate source. So I think there is something very different going on in the pharma sector between India and the U.S. The
Okay.
second thing on components, I believe a lot of the auto components also are made by American firms based in India, as well as Indian firms who are, sole or primary contractors or primary tier one suppliers to the OEMs in the US. And while the aftermarket is a separate issue, but I think there will be an equal kind of a pressure from the OEs in the US to actually ensure that they are not made uncompetitive by taxing their supply chains and their sourcing requirements from India.
All right. And on the second point that you had previously mentioned, Mr. Chinoy, that the luxury EV market in India is the one where the numbers are actually coming in high numbers from. On that front, does it make sense now for Elon Musk to try and build a make in India, make for India cheaper Tesla vehicle? Or do you think in his strategic interest, it makes sense to go after the high paying customers and just import the Model 3 for the time being?
That depends on Tesla's global strategy. Because if Tesla wants to expand, if they want to compete, and you said that BYD is the largest player in China.
Yeah.
BYD has a range of models, right? From entry-level models to high-end models, from sedans to SUVs, etc. And if Tesla wants to become a full, complete from total entry level to the upper end car manufacturer, other than the particular models they have, then as a company they have to look at diversifying. And what best to look at entry level cars here in India. Hyundai also actually did this many years ago, where they looked at the small car production in India, and they used to export their small cars out from India to Europe, taking advantage of agreement that Korea and Hyundai had with Europe. And as the numbers started increasing, and as the Indian market increased, Hyundai could not expand capacity to meet the local demand, so that actually took a hit. But you would see a very different strategy from Tesla, depending on how important this segment is in the overall portfolio of Elon Musk. And if he's looking at expanding his range, then it makes sense to actually locate kind of a different entry level or a mid-level vehicle manufactured in India for the world.
Okay, and I want to understand from you the contours of the electric mobility policy that the government had launched last year. Now, as per my understanding and from what I remember, Mr. Chinoy, a foreign player wanting to enter India's EV market will be given a concession of just 15% duty. If the car is priced above $35,000, as many as only 18,000 units of a car can be imported into India and sold in India, and a minimum commitment of $500 million must be made by the foreign player who wants to manufacture cars in India. Do these contours still hold true, or do you expect there's going to be some revision in the policy to further sweeten the deal for Tesla and perhaps potential competitors of Tesla to also come into the India market?
I think that since March 24, when this policy was announced, this has not really taken off as much as the PLI and the other aspects of the electric mobility plan have taken off. But, I think there are also 25% localization targets within 3 years and 50% within 5 years, the contours of which were not clear at the time when it was announced, when Tesla was coming to India. And therefore, you will see some clarity come here. And I don't think that the overall contours would be dramatically changed going forward. And I believe that the numbers that they have talked about, you see, it's 40,000 EVs at the concessional duty over 5 years, provided that they invest 500 million. Now, for him as a market entry strategy to test the market and to see whether his model actually takes off in India, it's enough of an incentive there. Would that 15% come down? I don't think at this point of time. But let's see. There's, as the discussions go on, and is there a special carve-out for US firms or something, we have to wait and watch. Everything will be clear in September, because I think President Trump has said that, we don't want any delay. We want the contours of the US-India trade side to be clear by end August. Right.
So I want to also, I can't resist but ask you that, do you think there is a potential that Elon Musk will want to sort of leverage his proximity to President Donald Trump and try and find a sweeter deal for his Tesla plans to enter India and sort of, in a way, try and help India with all the tariff and FTA concerns that we have?
I don't think Elon Musk, of all people, needs to move under the shadow of President Trump. As Prime Minister Modi himself said, he's known Mr. Musk since he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. And it's a long relationship. And one thing is sure that whatever the government does, whatever Prime Minister Modi and the government does, will be for the sector as a whole, not for an individual company. That
Okay.
has been the policy of the government right throughout. And I don't think that the proximity between Mr. Musk and President Trump is a factor in
Okay.
these discussions.
All right. And I think finally the question that everybody has on their minds is how soon can they get access to a Tesla car in India? So given your understanding of the India ease of doing business landscape, FDI landscape, and the fact that this is none other than the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who also among other friends shares a good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, how soon do you think Tesla cars will be available in Indian showrooms?
It could be very quick because there are four things that are required. One is the permission to set up a showroom. I think that's very simple now. It's all online and very simple, etc. The second requirement is that how soon the vehicles are looked at homologation for India, because even if they're homologated in Europe, which are normally right-hand drive vehicles, in India, you need a homologation for a left-hand drive vehicle. A right-hand drive vehicle versus a left-hand vehicle in Europe. So, that depends on ARAI and the speed at which these vehicles are done. It is believed that some of the vehicles are already homologated, but that will soon come out. So it just depends on the status of the homologation process and the numbers that he can ship in here and the service network. He's actually advertised for service heads and other things. So he like to get the service network and of course the charging infrastructure in place before he gets the cars here. But net, if Tesla does come in and if he focuses on charging and localization of content, it'll be a plus for the EV industry in India because it will get in technology, it will get in more number of players going forward.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that for now. Mr. Dilip Chenoy, thank you so much for taking out time this Wednesday morning and joining us here on News 9.
Thanks, Scott.